Drake actually said it in a song. Everybody I know that's married is miserable. And I want people to understand that that is a choice.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm O
And I'm Jay.
of the J&O Show.
Indeed.
But you can call me Onika
Yeah.
for today's purposes for the show. I don't know. What else do you want to say about us? We have a YouTube channel called the J&O Show, where we talk about
things that we were never told.
Yes.
And that's pretty much our thing. We realized that a lot of the friends, a lot of the people around us, a lot of the people that we grew up with who were getting married, a lot of them were getting divorced and having a lot of marriage issues. And what was weird to us is that a lot of the times it would be the exact ones that we would go and visit and have a great time. And on the way home, we'd be like, something seemed off.
Something ain't right.
We need to pray for them because something seemed a little off. And it was certain conversations we would have, and all of us would be clueless about certain things in marriage, but yet we all had it in common.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just like, we were just never told a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And once we saw a lot of these people starting to actually get divorced and have extreme stresses in their marriage, we were like, okay, we need to do something because this may be more common than just our little group. This might be happening all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, we were introduced to the dating market.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. At that point, I was like, Jesus, we need some help. And then I got red pilled and
yeah.
Oh man, it's just been so much.
Awesome.
But one thing I could say is we still are in the space of seeing how important it is for marriages and families, especially in our community, to come together, because that is literally the center of the majority of our problems.
Yes.
And the other communities that are doing great, their families are intact.
Yep.
So I was like, we need to fix this if we ever want to be in a better position than we're in right now.
Yeah.
So we just trying to do our part.
Yeah. So that is us. We just try to share our knowledge, based off of the information that we've attained over the years. We've been together for about 20 years.
Yeah, we'll be 20 years in August dating.
Yes.
And 18 years also in August.
Yes.
Married.
Married, yes.
So I already just claimed 20 years. I'm like, we've been together for 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't even specify nothing. I just say 20 years.
And we've been through a lot within that time. And we just want to be able to share the little bit of knowledge that we have, with other couples, with other married couples, with other people who are thinking about getting married, and hoping that it'll help them understand that marriage can be a beautiful thing, but it does take work. And don't feel like you're alone in some of the situations that you're going through, because it's normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah. And also because there's a thing out there, everybody Drake actually said it in a song, everybody I know that's married is miserable. And I want people to understand that that is a choice.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just because it's a difficult choice doesn't mean that it's still not a choice. Sometimes you can just be in a situation where you feel how you feel, and you can make a choice to allow your emotions to control you, or you can make a decision to do something about it and to be active and proactive. And if you take the same mentality that most of us have towards our jobs and our careers and getting money, and we put it towards marriage, then marriages would be better too, just like everybody else's careers can be better. So we just want people to stop allowing their power to be taken from them.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always tell people, stop listening to celebrities and rappers and actors and trying to live their lives or whatever. I'll just take it to this level. The happiest women I've ever met in my life, they died surrounded by their grandkids, surrounded by, if their husband was still alive, surrounded by their husband. If their husband was not alive, surrounded in the house that their husband built for them. Those are the happiest women that I met. Whereas my female acquaintances or some female family members that I have or whoever that basically wanted to be rebels their entire lives, those women, as they're getting in their 60s and their 50s, in their late 50s and their 60s, and some of them in their 70s, and they're dying alone, it's a very sad thing to see. I mean, they're calling up their kids, asking their kids to come visit them because they're lonely all the time, asking their grandkids to spend time with them because they made the choice, like you said, bro, they made a choice earlier that they wanted to be rebels and they did not want to basically submit to a man or submit to a good quality man. And some of them did make bad choices or whatever, the men that they chose, but they made a choice basically, and that choice, those choices are not turning out well. And conversely, I can't tell you how many older men that I know of, some family, some not, that are still flying all around the world trying to sleep with whoever. They're still basically renting women left and right. And when you sit down and talk to these guys, these men have had sex with over 1,000 women. They're not happy people. They've got baby mamas all over the world. They're paying alimony, child support. Nobody wants to really be around. Nobody's coming to visit them. And it's sad because some of these men, I've been in their funerals, and you know how crazy it is to go to somebody's funeral and they have like 2 or 3 people there, and one of the people is a pastor. Like nobody, like really, no one shows up. I've been to men's funerals like that. I'm just like, dude, you were in the army, you were in a fraternity, you played pro ball or whatever, and nobody shows up at your funeral. It's sad because they made the choice. They wanted to be essentially whores and man whores and basically players and pimps. And I've seen the way that lifestyle ends. So I'm just like, that's not basically the way I want to be. And I guess I got to introduce myself as well. Financipation. I typically like to talk about financially emancipating yourself from generational poverty through financial literacy and knowledge. I like to talk about finance because as a guy who has an MBA and who has an MBA who teaches finance and things like that, I noticed that one of the 2 biggest issues I find in our community, the community that looks like us, is one, we have no financial literacy this period. And whenever I talk to, unfortunately, I'll just say it straight up, Black folks, what we do to as far as our money is not, it makes literally no sense from an investment or from a savings standpoint. We don't know how to invest our money. We don't know basically the careers they're going to multiply that money. And then what's even sadder is that we don't even know how to set our money up so that the next generation has it better than we did. Every other culture that comes into America, even the Afro-Latino cultures, even the Afro-Caribbean cultures, they understand the concept of like setting aside an inheritance for your kids so you can pass it to your great grandkids. And you look at what the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies and everything did it, their grandkids are eating off of money that their grandfather set up for them 50 years earlier. So why are we not doing that as Black people?
Right.
So financially, I started Financipation because I want to kind of teach people how easy it is essentially to build money. That's one of the issues we have in our community. And the second one is, Jermaine, you hit the nail on the head, you as well, Anika. We're just not getting married, period. And to me, if I look at every other community, the Indian community, the Jewish community, the African community, the Nigerian community, the Asian community, they push financial literacy and they push getting married. And we'll talk about it, I guess, later in this podcast, but there's so many different life hacks and wealth hacks that you get from basically being married. So whenever people like Drake say most of the people he knows that are married are miserable, no, dude, that's the people that you know. Because the happiest people that I know, that the happiest people I've ever met in my life are happily married men and women. And it's not easy. You gotta, I've been married for 3 years. You gotta basically put in the work. It's not easy, but anything that's worth having, you have to put in work for it. So I guess that's my little spiel for now.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I like that.
All right.
Cool. All right, so J&O Show, I'll say this as well. I've been watching you guys from afar off, and I love what you guys are doing. I love seeing a beautiful Black couple that's basically being happily married. Both of you guys are good people, and I love your content. So I guess
Thank you.
let's
thank you.
Game recognizes game, so thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm actually I would have to say that I'm very happy that a channel like yours exists because I mean, when I tell you like hitting it on the head, like financially, we as a people have no clue how to deal. And I'm lumping myself in there too. I'm not acting like I know how to do my money. I'm not acting like I know how to properly invest. I'm not acting like I know how to properly save. But then I look back at how I was taught, and the most I got, God bless my parents. I love them to death. They tried their best. And considering, my parents were older. So my parents are older. So now I'm in my mid 40s. My dad is about to be 80. So it's not like a situation where I'm in my mid 40s and he in his mid 60s, right? So it was an older generation. My father was born in, Lord, please help me get the date right. He was born in 1943. Drafted into the army. He had to go through all the craziness, and he was a doctor in there. So and he had to see all of the craziness that was happening in war. Not because he wanted to, not because he wanted to go to the army, not because he wanted to serve his country, because he was drafted.
Korea or Vietnam?
Yeah, yes. Now, now he said that he didn't end up going over there. He was away from there, but they were where he was stationed. It was like a pass through for people who got injured and stuff like that. So even though he wasn't in the middle of the firefight like my uncle was,
he saw it.
He got to see all of the results, and he had to be helping people. And when he started telling me the stories of the things he had to do as like a midpoint doctor, because he wasn't a doctor that was doing a surgery, he was making sure that these guys can get to where they needed to get to alive. So he was talking about, I don't want to get too gruesome, but he was just doing things that I was just like mentally, I'm just like, oh, Dad, I don't know if I would have been able to do that. So considering where he came from, the time he came from, the time he grew up in, they tried their best. So I want to make sure I give them their flowers. But when it came to something like, you know, in this modern time, we're like learning how to save and to be financially independent, financially free, wise with your money. They were like, yeah, make sure you have a savings account and you have your checking account, and make sure you put something in your savings account for later on. And they're from the time of, we worked this one job for 40, 50 years and you retired from the company, you know, you got that pension and stuff like that. And
a nice gold watch or the silver watch or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my parents were actually very successful in what they were trying to accomplish, but they didn't have the knowledge to understand the things that a channel like yours gives. So the fact that you are going to take the experience that you have, that you're going to take the knowledge that you've acquired in school and give it to our community, that is so valuable. Because like you're saying, things like generational wealth and stuff, the things that come out of living in an area where poverty is so prevalent, those are things that can be avoided.
Yes.
If you understand what you're doing. So I just want to, I know it was long-winded and I gave a backstory and everything, but I'm so appreciative of channels like yours, because we need, of all of the channels on YouTube, and there are millions and millions and millions, we need your type of channels. Yes. So I just want to give you props for that too, because
appreciate it. And on top of that too, we need to see more of you guys. I mean, Nika, we know each other a little bit and everything, but I just don't see a lot of, I hate to say this, I don't see a lot of happily married Black people. I'll just flat out say it. I just don't see that. I growing up, I kind of saw it a little bit in the church. I don't see it at all anymore in the church. I definitely don't see it in the world. I didn't see it in the bars and the clubs when I left the church. So like to me, I love seeing, when I first saw you guys' channel, I was like, I know her, I know him, I know them. They're happily married. I know that sounds crazy, but literally 90% of the happily married dudes that I know are probably, I can count on one hand. And that's Black, white, and Hispanic. It's everything. So to me, it's just kind of like one of those things where if we want to kind of change what's kind of happening, you got to basically bring the family unit back. So when I saw you guys' channel, I was like, I love this. They're not talking about Mary had a little lamb. They're getting real with it, but they're basically getting real with it from perspective of marriage works. You just got to pick the right person. Right. And to me, that's what our community needs to hear, because when I hear my little cousins talk about getting married, I hear my little nephews talk about it. They're just like, what's the point of doing that? And I think we need to kind of change that. We have to change that narrative as a group of people. If we don't, we're literally headed to financial destruction, period. If we don't. So yeah, I love you guys' channel as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Much respect. Yeah. And likewise. Let me see. So we talked about I forgot the name of the guy's channel.
I think Eric Billingsley or something like that.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So they had a video called like the dating crisis or something like that, what have you. Really good episode. It's quite lengthy. Hopefully we'll drop the link if you guys want to check them out. But he had another brother on there, Stefan Speaks, also another great YouTuber. He has a great channel as well. And they had a lot of interesting things that they discussed. Basically like within that segment. But one of the things that I wanted us to kind of talk about before we dive into the crisis of marriage, crisis of dating and everything like that, I think there are certain things that we probably need to define. Right. One of those things would be, you hear all this talk about high value man. I believe now you're starting to hear high value woman. So who, or no, not who. I was gonna say who defines who. Actually, no, yeah, let's go there. So who would define what a high value woman is?
All right. I guess I will go first with that. To me, it has to be defined by quote unquote your peers. And the reason why I say that is because you can run around and talk about I'm high value this, I'm high value that. If the men or the women around you don't see you as that, I don't think necessarily that you can define yourself as high, quote unquote, high value. I guess I'll go from a woman's perspective of what I consider high value to be, and what the guys that I kind of roll with, what we all consider a high value woman to be, a quote or whatever. To us, a high value woman is, generally speaking, a woman. First off, I'll just get this one right off the bat. She has to be attractive. She has to be the kind of woman where when you see her, she kind of turns her head and you say, okay, she's sexy, she's attractive, I would like to talk to her. That's one aspect of a high value woman, because at the end of the day, whether it's good or bad, men, we don't particularly care too much about quote unquote how much money you make. There is an aspect to it that we do, but that's not necessarily the first thing we think about. So that's how I define a high value woman. Another thing too about a high value woman is that, generally speaking, most men is kind of changing a little. Well, they're trying to change a little bit now. I don't think it's ever going to change, but generally speaking, you don't see like a lot of high value women with, for instance, OnlyFans accounts. You don't see like a lot of high value women, quote unquote, with like porn, with sex tapes or whatever floating around. I'll just be, we get honest on this show, so let's get honest. I don't really know of a lot of high value women that had careers basically in the adult film industry or strippers or nothing like that. That's just not, high value women typically have very, very, very good reputations or whatever. You never see, for instance, LeBron James's wife basically make up with an OnlyFans account. It just doesn't happen. You're not going to see that kind of stuff. Right. So those are some of the aspects of high value women. On a more legacy standpoint, I noticed that high value women also raise high value children. So for instance, if you take a look at, like, I would say Denzel Washington's wife, I don't even know what she looks like, but take a look at Denzel Washington's kids. One of them has a very affluent acting career, and he's done it completely irrespective of his father. Right. So compare Denzel Washington's kids to another gentleman who's just in the media for smacking another guy. Compare Denzel's kids to that guy's kids. I hate to say it, but like, just look at the outcomes. Just look at the outcomes or whatever. So there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into high value women. I actually have a video about that where I talk about 16 signs of a high value woman. So everybody, you can check that out. But those are like the kind of rough and dirty. They have to have a good reputation. They have to essentially bring, they have to be attractive. And on top of it, they have to basically help you build generational wealth. That's how I define high value women. And if I want to get to the physical thing, they need to be fit, they need to be friendly, they need to be feminine, and they basically need to have a very small, I would say, reputation, if you will. As far as high value men, kind of the exact opposite or whatever. We're defined a lot more by our money. It could be a good, it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing, but at the end of the day, women want a man who's going to protect them, a man who's going to provide for them, a man who's going to lead them. So the way I define a high value man is, A, you need to be financially literate to the point where you can tell a woman, babe, I got this. And if you listen to what I'm telling you to do, we're going to build generational wealth. That to me is a high value man, because you're basically essentially telling a woman, financially, I'm going to be good. I'm going to work as hard as I need to work so I can basically provide for you. Two, I'm a lifelong martial artist, and I think there is an aspect of you need to be willing to protect your wife. I am a certified pistol instructor. I'm a certified rifle instructor. I've done martial arts for over 20 years. If I physically needed to defend my family, my wife has seen me fight. She's seen me shoot guns. She's seen me do all that kind of stuff. So I can physically defend her. If there's a bump at night in the middle of the night, she knows I can defend her. From a financial standpoint, I think that on top of that, men, we need to basically be providers. And on top of that, we need to basically love our wives and love our kids. That's how I define being a high value man. And on top of that, there also is a level of respect you have to get from your peers. If you're in a room with 10 guys, they need to respect that guy because, quote unquote, they say, okay, Chris brings value to the table. Jermaine brings value to the table. He can roll with us because he's invited to our country clubs. He's invited to our pastoral meetings. He's invited to basically our guys on our business trips because we know this guy brings value to the table. That's how I define a high value man. I know it's a long-winded speech, but that's how I define it. And on top of that too, I think high value men basically take care of their bodies, because at the end of the day, if you die of a heart attack at 40 and you were making $100,000 a year, you just cost your family $2.5 million because you died 25 years prematurely. That's how I define a high value man. So, yep.
Okay. Talk to him, Chris. I love it. Love it.
Focused.
Okay.
I would add now to everything that he said, 100%, right? Especially when you're talking about the sexual dating marketplace. 100%. I would add, and it's something that we've been saying in our show a lot, character matters for everybody. You can have everything that Chris was talking about, right? And if there is lack in your character, there is cracks in the foundation of your family. So one of the things you said was that he has to add value for the men. He has to add value. He has to have respect. So there goes, it automatically indicates a level of character. But what a lot of guys don't do is that they'll hear what you just said and they won't pick up on the subtle way that it's suggested that there be a certain amount of character, because you can't have a certain type of reputation, which is exactly what you said when you were defining a high value woman, without having a certain amount of character. A lot of people believe that as a man, I can just get certain amount of money and I can try to get a certain amount of status, but I don't have to have a certain amount of character because nobody cares. Well, you can try that with you'll attract a lot of women. You will. What kind? You know, you'll attract a lot of women, and a lot of women who will want to marry you. But what kind? And if you start things on a rocky foundation because you don't have the character thing in place. So a lot of people don't understand, especially when Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, when he was talking about a lot of these things, a lot of people didn't understand that because he didn't openly verbalize that character was a part of the thing, a lot of people separated them. Because they started going for all of the things, but not a lot of the underlying things that makes you able to attain a lot of these things. In order to have a certain type of reputation, there has to be some character there. In order to have, let's just be honest, a low body count for a woman, there has to be a certain amount of character there, you know? So a lot of people just sort of jump over it and they feel that as long as I'm a man and I get money, as long as I'm a woman and I'm pretty, I'm automatically high value because they said such and such and such. No, boo-boo, you missed the point.
Exactly.
You know, there is an underlying allusion to these things in these descriptions of a high value man and a high value woman that a lot of people miss. And I think that's one of the things that we're fighting for and against as we're talking about this new dating market, because everybody is concentrating on the things and not the character that you need in order to attain these things.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. It's funny because as men, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've been in a situation, you've been like at a bar or at I don't know, a country club or whatever, and a guy will show up and he's talking about like all these different married women that he's banging, or all these different business deals that he's doing, and you listen to this guy explain, you say, okay, what you're doing is illegal, bro. You might get away with it, but you're gonna get caught. Right. A guy talking about all the different things that he's doing, he's like, yo, this is a seedy, scummy guy. I'm not really rolling. And then dude can be a millionaire, but at the end of the day, you're like, all right, I'm not introducing my family around you. I'm not introducing you to the rest of my people in my country club. I'm not introducing you to any of my business dealings or anything, because I'm cool with you. I'm cool hanging out with you in this little facet that we're kicking it, whether it's like we're lifting weights or we're playing ball or we're golfing or whatever it is. But I'm not going to introduce you to the true movers and shakers in my life because I don't trust you and I don't particularly like you. And that to me is where the character kind of comes into play, because at the end of the day, I don't care how much quote unquote money you make. I'm not going to be rolling with a guy who I think the feds are going to show up. I'm not going to roll with a guy who I don't want like one of my female acquaintances to be around because I know he's a scummy guy. That's just the way that it is. Right. It's like there is an aspect of reputation to it or whatever that has to kind of come into play. And you're right. A lot of men, particularly in the manosphere, red pill space, they kind of miss that, I would say.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
Yeah. And one of the things I was just going to add to that is I think one of the bigger issues with the dating market, with these different mentalities as far as like what's a high value man and what's a high value woman, oftentimes we hear about or we see the modern day feminists basically who are upset with the high value men or just men in general, discrediting them. We did a video about this not too long ago about basically them not understanding what men hold value when it comes to women and what they're looking for. So basically, who defines who is high value? It's whoever that person is trying to attract. So for women, if you're trying to attract the high value man, then they're the ones who define basically what a high value woman is, and vice versa. Like if a woman is trying to find a high value men, then it's the women basically who are defining what high value men are.
Right.
And I think that that's a big point that is being missed, you know, with a lot of the bickering that's going back and forth, you know, in the dating market,
right,
and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think another thing too that feminists kind of miss out, misogynistic men miss out on some stuff too. But I think one of the things that feminists miss out on too when it comes to the whole dating market is that when it boils down to it, you can blame the man upstairs, but when you factor in men that are homosexual, when you factor in men that basically don't have a male reproductive organ, when you factor in men that are broke, when you factor in men that are incarcerated, when you factor in guys that basically are mentally handicapped or whatever, there are literally like 10 heterosexual women for every one heterosexual man. And then on top of that, when you factor in the fact that men, I can be 90 years old and still basically probably pull like a 40-year-old and still get her pregnant. But you're never going to see the opposite. You're never going to see like a 90-year-old woman dating a 40-year-old man unless if he's trying to steal her money. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
So one of the things I think feminists kind of really are disingenuous about when it comes to younger women is that, for better or for worse, there is a double standard when it comes to dating, but there's also a double standard when it comes to the fact that there are a lot more heterosexual women than there are heterosexual men. So that's why I kind of really push back when women say, well, it's my body, my choice. I can do what I want to do. I can live how I want to live. Yeah, you're right. You can. But at 40 years old, a 40-year-old guy, I lived in Miami for almost a decade. I can't tell how many 60-year-old men I saw with 25 and 30-year-old women that actually you seriously did love them or whatever. But you never saw the opposite. So to me, feminists, I think, are being kind of disingenuous with women when they try to push this idea that you can literally behave just like a man and you can get the same outcomes. And that's not the way, that's not the same thing. And I always try to push back on like a lot of women who ask me questions, but I'm like, look, guys can do this kind of stuff. And whether you like it or not, our options are a lot better at 30 than they are for you at 30. Our options are a lot better at 50 than they are for you at 35. And to me, feminists miss out on that a lot, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we're just rolling into it. The idea of fairness, and I think that's one of the things that I hear about a lot, and a lot of people need to understand. Like, the easy way to say it is life isn't fair because we live in this participation trophy society. We believe that, you know, everybody should be rewarded for just showing up, just for being alive. You should be, and in a lot of situations, I've been hearing a lot lately that a lot of women, unfortunately, they sort of get a participation trophy because of how their value exists when it comes to the sexual marketplace, the things they had to do. Like, I always hear content creators, this ain't me, so y'all don't get mad at me. I always hear content creators say, you know, if you have a yacht, in order for a guy to be on the yacht, he has to have done something and worked for it for such a long time, for so hard. Even if it's not his, in order to get into the company of somebody who has the yacht, you have to have put in a lot of groundwork. Most guys ain't gonna see that yacht until they 30, 35. Matt, it's not really 30, 35. To be honest, it's like 45, y'all. 40, but I'm gonna say, because we in the social media world and everybody's seeing these guys do it younger because of social media, I'm gonna just say 30, 35, okay? But realistically, y'all, it's like in their 40s, 50s. That's when they be, in order to get on a yacht, they gotta be there. It takes that long to build yourself to be able to do that. The woman at 20 years old,
a nice butt, nice smile,
she there. She already on the yacht. You know, whether it's the guy who owns it, whether it's his girl or whether it's one of the guys who came there, their girl or whatever. Like the way the world is built. When we talk about fairness, I don't think a lot of people understand that regardless of how it hurts our feelings, this world as it exists does not care about fairness. And at the end of the day, you have to take into consideration that things are not going to be even 100%. Just because men and women are equal in the eyes of value spiritually, in the eyes of value as a person, has nothing to do with your value on the sexual dating marketplace. It has nothing to do with what life is going to hand you. And I think I said it not too long ago. You can get a horrible consequence for making the right decision. And it's just the way the world is built and the way that it is. And you have to understand that things aren't always going to be fair. So the idea of fairness that we have in our minds is really one of the things that is messing people up in the way that they view the world and how things are supposed to be and stuff like that. Because even if we tried to change, if everything in America changed and was a certain way and everything was even and everything was fair, you know, somehow, whatever that would look like, the rest of the world wouldn't operate that. And they don't really care about how we think we want to set up our society. And if they see that we go soft,
they're gonna take it.
Believe, because you know we talk. No, I don't even want to go into
they coming to take it,
man, and all of that stuff. I'm not even gonna go into it. I'm gonna just say there's a reason why men are built a certain way and why women are built a certain way, and it is in our best interest to not buck against that so hard that we eliminate real men. And by real, I mean men who are willing to do the things that everybody else ain't willing to do.
Exactly. I would say too, that's actually kind of one of the very cool things about America, because my grandfather was a sharecropper. My father was U.S. military. I'm a mechanical engineer who teaches finance, and my son is probably going to be the first generation who's going to be, I call it the black privilege class, where Christopher is going to have the ability, and my nephews as well, the ability to basically be in any world that he wants to be in. He's going to have a leg up because of the financial things we're setting in place for him. But when you talk about fair, I always say, like, just like the analogy you said right there, if I'm a 45-year-old single man on a yacht and a bad 20-year-old chick walks by me and I'm not married, I'm single, say in this example, I'm a single guy, I'm going to holler at the 20-year-old girl twice as fast as I'm going to holler at her 45-year-old mother who's the same age as I am. Why? Because the 20-year-old she doesn't have a kid yet. Or whatever. Right. In the same respect, the 45-year-old woman, she may have worked really hard to get to that point. She may basically be making the same kind of income levels that I'm making, but that does not turn me on. It does nothing for me. But her 20-year-old daughter, that's kind of what men want to go after. It's not fair. But it also goes to another way. Let's say you're the type of guy who you basically have no, you're not careful with your seed or whatever, and you're not basically careful with the type of women that you marry. Let's say you marry this low value 20-year-old because she's pretty, she's a big butt and a nice smile. Let's say she has one kid with you and leaves you. You're looking at 18 years of child support, alimony, and possibly some other damages or whatever. And because of no-fault divorces that unfortunately go on in this country, that are generally speaking, 90% of the stuff goes to the woman and goes to the child. As men, that's not fair for us. So it's like, how do you want to define fairness? Or women will say it's not fair that a guy can essentially be a whore or whatever, and a guy, like you said, can be 45 years old and still pull a bad 20-year-old. But men will say it's not fair that you can marry whoever you want. But a lot of women out here, Drake is an example. He basically look what that girl did to him or whatever. Where he got the wrong woman pregnant, and she's looking at literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a month of child support for the next 17 years. So it's like, you're right, life's not fair, but we got to get over it, people. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question. As a happily married couple, what are your thoughts on the rise of this whole manosphere and feminism? Because you guys are killing it 20 years in the game married. What are your thoughts on this red pill? Now, I got married 3 years ago, so I was absolutely, completely 100% into the whole dating pool before I met my beautiful, lovely wife and got out of it. But what are your thoughts on this whole rise of feminism, the manosphere, and all this kind of stuff?
The short answer is they need Jesus. That's the short. Okay. I'm gonna keep on saying it till he comes. But it's really sad, because I know oftentimes we joke about it, like when we talk, we're like, dang, like I don't remember it being that bad. Like, you know, before we got together, and I'm just like, what in the world? But the reason why we see the dating market the way that it is for several reasons. But I think two of the biggest reasons is, one is the breakdown of the family, and two, because of the rise of social media. Social media is a gift and a curse, because people are getting the Disneyfication of relationship, of a life, of everything. Like we watch a lot of relationship-based content, obviously, because of what we do. And we were just talking about Love is Blind. Okay. It's a Netflix show that comes out, that comes on Netflix. It's a really good show. The thought process behind it is, can you fall in love with someone without actually meeting them, like seeing them face to face? And in this show, essentially, they date for like a week, or so, but they have a wall in between them, so they never see the person, but they have these dates, like they're on dates for like 10 hours per day.
They don't know what their bodies look like. They don't know what their faces look like.
No
Nothing.
idea.
Wow.
They can't tell them, give them any idea. I mean, they can probably guess certain things maybe by like their name, their ethnicity and stuff like that. They can even tell them their ethnicity, like none of that. And basically within that 10-day span or whatever, the thought process is, if they fall in love with them, will they propose basically to get married? And they're supposed to get married basically within 2 months. So after basically they propose and everything like that, then they do finally get to meet each other, and then they get whisked away to go on this honeymoon kind of get to know you vacation before they get to know each other for real and then get married, right? We were just talking about, it's funny because oftentimes they set up dates for one another. They set up dates. It's the show that sets up the dates, but it'll be like real lavish. Like they'll be like off on the beach, and they'll have like thousands and thousands of flowers, you know, all these like really fancy get-ups, and it's just like a candlelit dinner for the two of them. And you see this kind of stuff like online. I said all that to say, like, you see all this kind of stuff on social media oftentimes from people who live that lifestyle, like people who are got money, like rich and stuff like that. And you see that and you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to have. And it's just like, that's not normal.
Right.
Like life is not, oh, I'm going on yachts every other weekend, you know, like most people, that's not happening.
Right.
So it's just sad. I'll stop right there, and I'll let Jay go. But yeah, it's just.
Yep. Definitely.
I think for us, I was introduced to the Manosphere as a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, blue-pilled man. I walked into this thing and I didn't know what was happening to me. I was like, well, you know, this is interesting. What is this video talking about? I'm watching relationship videos, because I'm gonna be honest, the stuff that I watch now is completely different from what I watched 3 years ago. I was in a completely different space. Before we were doing this channel, I was doing music. So if you look through my YouTube feed, it was like production tips and this is how you mix and audio engineering this. And I was there. I was completely in a different space. As a matter of fact, one time you were looking at Love is Blind.
Yes.
And she was like, babe, you want to watch the show with me? I was like, what is it? She was like, it's called Love is Blind. And I was like, what is it? And then she told me what it was. And I was like, hell no, I don't, why I would do that. I'm going to go upstairs in the studio and I'm going to go and make some music. That's what I'm going to do. I don't know what you're talking about. So now doing the show, I'm in a completely different space. So I was introduced to this thing. And in the middle of watching some of the things that I saw, I was watching MTR, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews. I was watching him, and I was like, okay, this is different. I ain't never
heard. He's one of the cleaner ones, actually. He's actually he's actually one of the cleaner guys.
Yeah, because see, you know what the algorithm did to me, right? It was all on purpose, because they saw the stuff I was watching, so they slowly introduced me.
Got to get you.
They slowly introduced me to this thing, and then I came across a gentleman. A distinguished gentleman who presented himself as one of the cleanest brothers I have ever seen in my life. And I was like, oh, I like this guy. He got his suited up. Look at his background. And I keep staring at this thing going round and
Brother
round.
Samuel's the Godfather.
And so I was like, and he said some of the most outrageous things I had ever heard in my life at that point, because I blue-pilled, bright-eyed from the church. So, and then I got what they call red-pilled. Changed my life. Still trying to figure out if for the better or for the worse, but it changed because I was already happily married. And you know what happened? Started having these conversations with my wife while we're shooting the show. And she was like, and I was like, so you mean to tell me that all this time you want to be like even? I thought, you know, we was going to be we wanted to be on the same exact because we wanted to make decisions together, sit down, make a list and, you know, do things like that. You wanted me to leave? She was like, yeah, I did. I was like, oh, okay. We got to make some changes then. I think that the manosphere and how it exists. If people are asking, is it a good thing? I'm not going to say that it was a bad thing at all. I don't consider myself truly red pill. I don't think they'll let me in the club. I applied and I just ain't hear nothing back. So I'm assuming that they denied my application. So it was like, this dude already married, man. You can't, I mean, you might be able to be purple pill. You can't be red. So I was sitting there, and one of the things about them, it is a necessity. It had to happen because of the society that feminism set up, and that a lot of people bought into it because they come into it under the guise of, we want to be equal. What's so bad about that? Right. And that's the guise. But then when you start breaking down some of the things they say and some of the things that are normalized,
destroy the patriarchy.
Yeah, the patriarchy, that, and all of these things that they say, you start to be like, wait, we're not talking about equality, y'all. This is not what. And then they started to say things that clicked about what men and women really want. And they started saying things that me and my boys always said, but never thought about why we said them. We didn't understand why we gave certain women value, certain women that we didn't think were of value. And I started to be like, oh my gosh, a lot of this is true. Like, it's so much true. Then you got people that just exist solely to, they say dunk, dunk on women, and who take it way left, just like feminism. I don't have any problems with women wanting to be equal, but you have to understand, you can be as equal as you want, but men are not going to see you differently because of you being equal to me. Like, we're not.
Because you have a master's degree, it's not going to make you sexy. I'm sorry. Oprah is never going to be hot to me. She's a billionaire. I love what she's doing, but she's never going to be hot to me. Simple as that.
It's not. And it's one of those things, when I started seeing the truth of it, I was like, okay, so it's not so much, for me, it's not so much about the manosphere or the red pill community being about I guess whether people like it or not, or whether we be like, oh, because we have this nice peaceful asleep society. The reality, it was a necessity, because at some point guys were going to stand up after being kicked and stomped on, and they were going to say something. It wasn't going to last forever. And for me, it has very much changed my life, the way that I move in my family. Certain things we were already doing, we didn't know why though, and certain things we were not. And it sort of put into perspective the things that raised my wife's eyebrow and why they do. I mean, the reality is, being red pills is just about acknowledging the truth. Now, depending on your experience, will tell whether you get what they call black pill. Are you gonna go way to the left? I'm gonna just call them out. Are you gonna fresh and fit it? And are you gonna have a lot of pleasure just dunking on women left and right? Or are you gonna see things for how they are and be like, oh, this is the world that we live in, and I'm gonna move in it in a way so that I can be of best use to the God who has put me here to serve a purpose.
Right.
Absolutely.
So Absolutely. I think that it was more of a necessity than anything else. But just like anything else, especially with like even comparing the manosphere to the feminist movement, there are people that just go way left and they turn it into something that it was not originally intended to be.
Yeah. So we're both content creators. You guys do phenomenal work at the J&O show. I think I would like to say good work with Financipation. And you guys know what I'm about to say when I say this. If I do a video talking about HSAs and Roth IRAs and real estate investment trust and drip accounts from my 401ks, or I want to convert from one into another, or brokerage accounts or whatever, it does not get traction, at least not to the extent that I think that it should, for the level of importance that it is, period. But if I talk about, I met this girl is on OnlyFans. This is what her account looks like. She's trash. She's scum. She's a low value woman. She belongs to the streets. If I say those kinds of words, it's very sad, but my algorithms shoot through the roof. So we are incentivized, particularly as Black people, to sell poison to our communities and to just be outlandish and say crazy stuff. And if there's one thing that I loved about Kevin Samuels, God rest the Godfather, people always talk about the sensational stuff that he said. To me, Kevin Samuels was never a very sensational guy. I've said this in other podcasts that I've done. Nothing he said was surprising to me. He talked to me the exact same way my father talked to me. He talked to me the exact same way my grandfather talked to me. The stuff he says is how the men that I grew with talk to me, or whatever, as far as what you don't have to tolerate from a woman, and what, as a man, what your role as a Black man in society is supposed to be able to do. But to me, Kevin Samuels talked more so about building the Black family and about financial literacy. What's life going to look like for me from 65 to 85? A lot of these channels out there, I'm not gonna give a shout out, but you know which ones I'm talking about. It's just trash. It's like it's a trash, low value show. They basically just rehash the same crap because it drives up their algorithms, and it sounds really good or whatever. Just bad mouthing and belittling women. It sounds really good, but to me, it's not moving the community forward. And in regards to the feminism thing, Jermaine, I agree with you completely, bro. At some point, men were going to start saying, no, we're not going to tolerate this crap anymore. I refuse to sit back and be told as a heterosexual man that I need to be comfortable dating a 300-pound baby mama with 4 or 5 other dudes' kids, period. That to me is what there's a movement right now to tell men, no, you need to be comfortable raising another man's seed, which is ridiculous. You need to be perfectly, if that's what you want to do that. But it's like there's this incentive to tell black men, you need to basically raise another man's kids. And the woman you need to basically marry is 300 or 400 pounds or whatever, like certain artists that are out here, and basically just have absolutely no class or whatever. And as men, eventually we're gonna be like, no, I will not do that. So to me, there was definitely going to be a pushback. And on top of that, as a mechanical engineer and a guy who deals with numbers and finance, I live in the real world. So as it boils down to it, children that grow up in single parent homes, statistically speaking, are 4 times more likely to go to prison. Yes. Women that grow up in single mother homes are 7 times more likely to be pregnant before they're 18 or whatever. 90% of homeless kids basically and runaways, they come from single mother homes. 70% of high school dropouts come from single mother homes, and 60% of youth suicides come from single mother homes. And if you take a look at it, as African Americans, we all black folks or whatever, whether it's the Caribbean or America, the number one ways, if you read slave manuals or whatever, the number one way they basically had to keep black people in slavery was to take the man out of the house. And to me, modern day feminism has nothing to do with empowering women. It's completely about destroying the patriarchy and taking the man out of the house. So I agree with you. I don't like either extreme. I don't like the men talking about women are property and they belong to this, this, and this, and they have no rights, and we should just basically smash them and keep them, smash and dash, keep it moving. And I also don't like the other extreme that's misandry, that's basically misandry and says men are scum and you can't trust them or whatever. To me, as a happily married man, I think that there is a medium ground, whatever. And I think that I like you guys' show because you guys talk about what that medium ground is like. What's it like to have a healthy marriage or whatever? What's it like to basically be in a committed relationship with a woman who loves you and who has your back? What's it like to be in a committed relationship with a man who loves you, who has your back? So that's why me and my wife enjoy watching you guys' show, because that's the kind of stuff that you guys talk about, and I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, man.
I was just gonna say, you said something just now that struck a chord. You said that if you were to read a slave manual, the number one way to destroy the family is to take the man out the home. Did y'all hear that? Like that literally gave me chills. And it's just like, wow, like we don't even, it's sad because we as a people, unfortunately, don't even realize that it's like we're enslaving ourselves all over again. Like we're doing it to ourselves by basically doing the same thing, ripping the man out the home.
Right.
That's why I push back on the women that say, I don't need a man, I'm a strong, independent woman, I'm this and that. I can't tell you how many women I've worked with in corporate America who refused to get married. Basically, they wanted a hot girl summer it up, and now they're 45 or 50 working 80 hours a week, making $42,000 a year. But the white and the Latina and the Indian women they work next to are only working 30 hours a week. They still make $42,000 a year, but they're happily married and they're raising their kids. Feminism, it played our women, period. Like hip hop played black men. It told us and sell drugs and go to prison, and you can get all these girls. As an educated black man, I can tell you, I got more girls than any thug I ever hung out with, period. So to me, it's just kind of like we've been played as a people. Feminism has played us and hip hop has played us. And Anika, it's very interesting you say that about the slave manuals and what it did. So my father was a very outspoken, very loud and proud black man. And he had me reading stuff like the Willie Lynch letters when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I'll say the PG version of Willie Lynch letters. Basically, that letter was basically said, this is what you do. Find the biggest, strongest, toughest black buck that you have. Take him out, bring out all the slaves, tie him to a tree, strip him naked, and in front of his wife and his kids, beat him basically to death in front of his kids. Then you find the second biggest black buck that you have in your plantation, bring him forward, beat him within an inch of his life, but don't kill him because you only want to kill one of your smart black bucks or whatever. Beat the second one nearly to death in front of his wife and kids. And if you do that, and you keep doing that repeatedly or every other year or whatever, you're going to keep basically black people in check, because you're going to take the father out of the home. And then you're also going to let the woman know that she can't defend her, that he can't defend them. that was essentially one of the things they did to kind of break Black people. So when I see modern day feminism, I see chicks talking about they want to rely on the government. They don't need a man. They're strong and independent or whatever. They don't care who they lay with because men are going to step up to the plate and pay these bills or whatever. We're doing the same crap that basically was done to our ancestors 150 years ago. And that's why I'm glad you guys' channels exist, because you're saying no, this is foolishness. We're not gonna tolerate this kind of crap. And that's why I enjoy hearing you guys' content.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's wow. That's crazy. And you know, it's the good book says that my people are destroyed for their lack of knowledge. And I'm so glad that your father had wisdom to be able to educate all of you, you know what I'm saying, by giving you that information early on to help you understand how you can break down the family, so that way you can do the opposite. Make sure that you're there in the home to be able to take care of yours and to take care of your family, because that's the best way in order for you to be successful in life, is for you to be able to be there and be hands-on, you know, in your family, in your child's life, and in your spouse's life. So